So you meet someone for the first time, and the first thing they ask is, so what do you do? What do you say when you don't want to answer that question? Let's talk about it. Hi everybody, I am Spirit. Welcome to Life with Spirit, where we talk about life, health and wellness, and everything in between. Now today we're going to talk about something that's not really chronic illness related, but it kind of is, because many of us in the chronic illness community aren't able to work anymore. Many of us had flourishing jobs like myself. I was a school counselor, I was an educator, and I had no intentions on leaving my job so early, but my health declined and I had to quit my job. So it was a little uncomfortable at first, when people would ask, oh, what do you do? Am I retired? Am I gonna be starting my own business? It was just kind of uncomfortable. And I've always been one to be a bit offended when someone, a complete stranger, asks me, what do I do? I feel it is very intrusive to ask that, because I really think that underneath that question really is a microaggression that we as a society have just accepted. And I don't feel that I have to go along with that. And I don't answer questions that I don't want to answer. And one reason why I think it's a microaggression is because the people who ask those questions are very proud of what they do. Because if they were scrubbing toilets at the airport, I promise you they would not be running around asking people, so what do you do? And why wouldn't they ask that? Because they don't want anybody asking them what they do. Not that there's anything wrong with cleaning up, scrubbing toilets. I have cleaned houses before. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and it is an honorable profession. But we know how society looks upon certain jobs. So if you say you're a doctor or a lawyer, oh, I clean toilets at the airport. Oh. The bottom line of the thing is that it's nobody's business. And when you are sick and you're already devastated that you cannot work, and it's affected you emotionally, it's affected you financially, you and your family, and maybe that's just something you don't want to discuss. I've even heard when Americans go to France, and that's one of the first things, oh, so what's your name? Oh, so what do you do? They're quite offended. And it's almost like, so wait a minute, you're asking me how I make my money to pay my bills? That's a bit private, don't you think? Now, it's different if they ask the question and it's germane to the conversation. Like, for example, let's say we're at the table and I'm talking about, oh my goodness, I'm so exhausted because I had to get out 18 reports today at work. And for someone to ask, oh, so what do you do? That would be a very natural question for someone to ask. So that's very much pertaining to the conversation. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that's the first thing you want to know. There are other questions that you can ask someone to get to know them. Like, where are you from? Or, oh yeah, the movie came out. Or that particular movie's coming out. Are you going to see that? Or if y'all are at a particular restaurant, oh, so have you been here before? What do you like to order on the menu? Different questions like that really get to knowing who that person is. What that person does for work is not who that person is, seeing as a lot of people do not like their jobs. Let me tell you a true story about a lady that I met in an herb store that I was in. I met this lady because she had some very beautiful perfume on, and I smelled it. This is before I was chemically sensitive. And I said, hi, I just love your perfume. It just smells so good. And she was like, oh, well, thank you. And she told me what this perfume was. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to write that down because that's my thing. Perfume was my thing back in the day. And so I'm mentioning this lady's race because it is germane to the conversation, okay? She was a lady from India, and that's not typically their MO. They don't, they don't ask those kinds of questions. That hasn't been my experience, at least. And so she was very Americanized because she told me about her Mercedes-Benz in the parking lot. And she was telling me about all the things in the neighborhood and this and that and that and this. And I was like, oh, you grew up here too? You grew up here too? Yeah, I grew up right across the street at that house right there, literally. So of course I didn't say that, but I just listened to her and I just nodded my head. And she was just spouting off about all these things and da 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 da. So I just like, this poor lady, she's probably been through it. It sounded like maybe she worked in a corporate situation, I'm just guessing, where someone had put all that on her. Someone had made her feel that she wasn't anybody unless she had these things. That was just my perception of her. Well, anyway, of course, here comes the question. Here comes the question. And I knew it was coming and I just smiled. She said, so, what do you do? And I said, with kindness and love in my heart, I live my best life every day as best possible. And she looked at me. She looked back at me and I looked at her with love in my eyes. Yes, that's what I do, yes. And she said, I like that. I'm gonna use that. I said, please do. Be my guest. So I was able to put up some boundaries. Let her know, no, boo, I ain't answering your question because it ain't your business. And I know why you're asking. And you're not going to microaggress on me like others have microaggressed on you. And you might need to try some of my tricks. So we were kind of buddies at that point. And it just really felt like she appreciated that. She appreciated that response because she knew I was setting a boundary. And I was saying, it's not your business. She knew that, but she also knew that I shared in a very loving way. There are some loving responses that you can say. You can straight out say, that's not anybody's business. You can be straight up like that. I mean, it's however you want to do it. At that moment in time, I chose to answer in the way that I answered. And I had to check my heart to make sure that I'm answering it with the right energy, because you can say the right thing and not have the right energy behind it and still portray a negative, low vibrational situation. And I don't want to be that person. I really rather respond in love. So what are some responses that you can tell somebody when they ask you, so what do you do? Or it might be some other intrusive question that someone might ask. Well, like I said, I try to live my best life every day. And that is the truth. That is straight up what I do every day. You're not lying. It's what you do. There's a girl on YouTube and she had me cracking up when she said this. Her response is, as little as possible. I love that response. I thought that's so witty and cute. So what do you do? Things that I enjoy. So what do you do? I'm still trying to figure that out. So what do you do? So you're asking me how I make my money to pay my bills? Is that what you're asking me? And just put it back on them and let them, yeah, no. So what do you do? Well, that's a bit personal, don't you think, seeing as we just met? I'm sure you understand. So what do you do? That's really none of your concern. So there's so many things that you can say. These are just some things that I came up with for the video, but the bottom line is that it is nobody's business what you do. You're already struggling with your health. Maybe you just recently had to quit your job and you're trying to get your mind around that. You're dealing with depression, and the last thing you want to deal with is some nosy person asking you how you make your money. It is not who you are. I am still me. I have not changed. The fact that I don't work a full-time job has not changed me in the least bit. I am still who I am. I'm still just as special and important as I was before. A job has never defined me. I'm still me. So I hope that you got some pointers that maybe you can share. What are some things that you can think of to tell somebody when they ask an intrusive question like, so what do you do? Thanks so much for watching this video. Love ya.